hear about me in that story that was just read, did you? I am Lydia, the mother of those two boys. Those two very different boys. Nathaniel, our eldest, and Zechariah, the child of our old age. And of course, I am a wife, Simon's wife. I want to tell you a little bit more of the story. Do any of you have children, or nieces and nephews, or children in the neighborhood? If you've been around children, you know how different they can be. One who never gives a moment of trouble, and another who constantly asks questions about everything. I think my second child was born with the word why on his lips. When I look back to the early years, they were pretty easy questions that he asked. Things like, why does the sun rise every day, and where does it go at night? Why does the moon disappear sometimes and shine so brightly at other times? Why do we not eat the meat of pigs? As Zechariah got older, the questions seemed more difficult to answer. He would ask, why do I have to go to work in the fields when I want to write a story? Why can't I go to the next town to find other musicians to play music with them? Why do you want me to take a wife? Why now? Why must I take a wife? Questions, questions, and more questions. I tell you, it drove me crazy some days. Of course, I think it seemed worse because my eldest son loved to go work in the fields. He gladly and willingly went out with my husband in the morning and came back singing at the end of the day. He loved this land and all that it took to work it. He was eager to take a wife and begin a family of his own. He never dreamed of far-off places and things that couldn't be. But our younger son did, and eventually we couldn't keep him at home. He told me that he was going to ask his father for his inheritance and start traveling. I told him Simon would never do this. After all, he was the youngest son, not really entitled to much of anything but a place in the family home. But he persisted. Oh my goodness, once that boy got something in his head, it was hard to shake it from him. And eventually, he wore my husband down. Simon sold some of our cattle and gave Zechariah the money. For me, it was like Simon was saying, you are no longer my son. And when I saw that happen, my heart broke. How could he no longer be our son? I carried him under my heart and nursed him from my own body. I could not deny his existence. I argued with Simon. My heart was breaking. But as the days and the weeks and the months and the years passed, I saw how Simon's heart was breaking as well. He never said anything to me, but he had a look in his eyes that told me how much he missed hearing the music and the laughter that Zechariah brought into our home. Simon still worked the fields and planned with Nathaniel and looked after our tenants, as he always did. But it was as if he was forcing himself to put one foot in front of the other every day. Simon was sad. I knew Simon often waited at the gate of our property, looking down the road as if he expected our son to appear. He never told me that he did that he waited that way, but you know, a wife knows. Simon would come in and I could tell how troubled he was. He missed Zechariah. Even though his son's daydreaming ways used to annoy Simon, and his music and laughter when he was supposed to be working used to anger him, Simon did miss him. And I watched out as my husband grew older and thinner. It was as if he was diminishing right before my very eyes. It was a hard time. It was very hard, even though we still had so much to be thankful for. We had bountiful crops. We had family and neighbors who were there in times of joy and celebration, and who were there when the barn burned down. And of course we had Yahweh and the rituals of the temple. But there was always something missing in our world. Our son, our youngest son. I knew that my husband asked all the travelers who came our way if they had seen him, and none ever had. As the days turned into months and then years, we thought that he was lost to us forever. We didn't speak his name. It was much too painful. And still we each whispered his name in the quiet. Be safe, my child. Be safe, Zechariah. One day I watched in secret as Simon stood by the gate. And I saw something happen that I never expected to see. My husband, a dignified elder of the temple, no longer a young man, running down the road like a young gazelle. He had picked up his robes. I could even see his bare feet as he raced down the path, feet flying faster than since he was a boy. I didn't know what was going on. And then I saw a small figure off in the distance, dressed in rags, looking dirty and skinny. I realized it was Zechariah. And Simon was running down the road to meet him. Arms were held wide open, and he embraced him and he wept. And this time it was tears of joy. Zechariah knelt down in the dust and told his father how sinful he'd been. And he tried to tell his father that all he wanted was a place as one of his hired hands. But you know, Simon had none of that. He called for a servant to bring a robe and sandals and a ring that named him once again as our son. And then he called to me, "Tell the servants to start preparing for a feast." And I did, and we did. But it seems like nothing is ever quite perfect. Our eldest son heard music and laughter and asked one of the servants what was going on. When he found out there was a celebration in honor of Zechariah's return, he became angry, and I think jealous as well. He went to see his father and told him that it wasn't fair, that he had been loyal and hard-working all these years, and he didn't even have a young goat for a celebration with his friends. But Zechariah, for him, a prized fattened calf was killed. I really think Nathaniel knew he was being unreasonable. After all, he'd had his father's trust and goodwill all of his life. But still, he didn't want to join the celebration. Simon tried to explain this to him. He said, "Son, you are always with me, and all that is mine is yours. But we had to celebrate and rejoice because this brother of yours was dead and has come to life. He was lost and has been found." Lost and been found. Dead and come back to life. That's how I felt. A part of my heart had come back to life. It had been restored with the appearance of Zechariah. I asked Nathaniel if he remembered how our scriptures told us to welcome the stranger. Always welcome the stranger. How God often came in the guise of a stranger. If we could welcome a stranger, surely we could welcome a lost son back into our home. Nathaniel was not convinced right away. But I saw, as the weeks and the months passed, he saw that Zechariah wasn't trying to take his place. In fact, he began to realize that he had missed him too, that a part of his heart had been missing as well. Your Christian scriptures call this the story of the prodigal son, but you know, it's really more a story about my husband, the welcome he gave, the love he poured out for both of our sons. It was like a well that never ran dry. This is a story of a forgiving father, a prodigal father giving love lavishly to his family. I am an old woman now, and Simon is long since dead. But not before he saw both of our sons marry and start families of their own. We still talk sometimes about the day Zechariah came home. We talk about the joy and the celebration of all the family together again. And we all learned something that day. Now that Nathaniel has children of his own, he understands that a son or a daughter is always a part of you, no matter what they've done or where they've been. Zechariah learned that it's possible to get another chance. My husband, Simon, he learned that his heart was stronger and bigger than his dignity. And me, I learned that sorrow doesn't always last forever. That which is lost can be found again. And I praise God for each of those lessons we learned.